And I'm now recording the meeting. So first, I haven't been able to look at the drafts submitted last class. Ultimately, I only have 24 of what did I say, 47, which is fine. Clearly you don't want those points, I guess. But given the number of essays that I'm working with right now, I'm just frankly not going to be able to get to them. But those points will be given for having done the work that I asked of you. What I want you to do right now, though, and somebody in fourth block did actually reach out to me through a message, and I've asked them now to kind of send that as an email. Is there something specific that you need me to look at from that draft? And so compose an email, take a moment or two to compose an email for me, and let me know what you need my help with in order to be able to turn in what will serve as a potential final draft for Friday of next week, provided you like your final score. If it turns out you don't like your final score, then it'll work as a rough draft, and you'll be able to revise and so on and so forth. So what is it? If there is something that you can think of that you need from me, take a moment and send me an email and tell me what you need me to look at. The student in question, or that I'm referring to, indicated that they're going to need some help finding some quotes. And that's one of the things that I love to do. I love to help you finding quotes. So please take a moment and do that, and I'll finish my email. Does anybody need more time to compose that? Parker, I got yours. And of course, reach out. As I imagine many of you will work on it probably over the weekend. And despite the fact that I am hoping that we'll be able to get into fences today, at the same time, it may be the case that I'll give you, either Monday or Wednesday, or maybe even Friday. I'll give you one day next week to work. Okay, one good solid work day. But probably not Friday. It'll probably be Monday or Wednesday, so that you have some good into it kind of stuff, and hopefully don't have to worry about it on Friday. Okay. Questions? Anybody think they have questions that might be beneficial for all of us? Katie, go ahead.
I arrived a bit late, so I don't know if it's you have already said this or not, but is it due at the end of class on Friday or before, or when's it due on Friday?
That's a good question. So it'll be 11:59 p.m. Friday night. Okay. And, if you're one of those knuckleheads that, waits to the last minute and all of a sudden you've got trouble submitting and so on and so forth, Canvas will not shut down and block you out at 11:59. You'll still be able to submit. But, if I'm seeing, people submitting Saturday morning, and you've not reached out to me, then that's an indication that your work is late. And, there's going to be a consequence. So, okay. Anything else? Other questions? So, Katie, were you here for the email part? Okay. Other questions?
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Ty.
Okay, so last night I did submit my draft and then it counted as late. I believe that's probably because I didn't email you.
If it was yesterday, then yeah, it was, because I said that I wanted it the day before. So it'll be late, but you'll get credit.
Like half credit or full credit?
Partial credit, not half credit. That's still too early. So I was very specific in terms of the directions that, if you wanted the bonus points, it needed to be that day. So you'll not be eligible for those bonus points, but you'll get credit for turning the work in. Okay.
Okay.
Other questions? And people, you need to keep in mind that, yeah, I'll take late work. And late work is going to be worth even more than half. It'll be partial credit, a little more than half, but not much more. But a little bit is better than the zero, as we've talked about when we're talking about, like academic dishonesty and plagiarism. If it's not your work, I can't give you credit at all. But if you give me something, even if it's terrible, you'll get a passing score. And getting a passing score on something is better than a zero on something that you've either cheated on or not done. So, and I can't help you improve at all if I get nothing. So give me something so that I can help you. Okay? That's my goal. That's why I have this job that I have, is to help you. So help me help you by doing stuff. Okay? So I've got, directions here, and these directions are also posted in the Canvas, in the assignments, and that is available for you to submit. And you could submit, as early as you want. And if it turns out that, no, I've rethought that and I kind of want to redo this and you need to redo something, you can resubmit. You're allowed to resubmit. So be aware of that. So today we're going to start looking at fences. And so folks in the room, you need a computer too so that you can read this article. And folks at home, if you would open up the link to Roman numeral 3. What's up, Katie?
I have a few missed phone calls from my sister.
You need to address that.
May I answer her phone call?
Yes. Do you know where the best place is for you to go to be able to do that?
The hallway?
Yeah, but is there a particular signal location?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay. So let me write you a little pass. What room are we in? 192. Give her heat. I don't want you to get in too much trouble.
Who wants to read this on our own?
Yes, please. Take a moment. Consider the things that stand out to you. And if you need to go back and kind of review, please do so. Okay. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
No. Okay. All right. So what particular moments stand out to you as we're looking at this this article? Are there any? I've got two.
Oh.
Go ahead, Katie.
How he didn't want the food that his mom gave him, but then they ended up needing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, that it's a classic sort of idea that moms embarrass us. Our parents will embarrass us. And there's, you know, that concern. But sure enough, our parents always seem to know best. Or let me walk that back. Our parents frequently seem to know best. Okay. So certainly, yeah. What an interesting kind of anecdote about that whole experience. You know, not knowing that they were going to indeed need that. Parker, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say like kind of like the plane scene where like they let the two people, white people, and
Right.
they did it.
Right.
So, like after that, how they like held in his anger.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm looking at that 6th paragraph on page 3, because that's a moment that stood out to me too. And it's this. Let's see here, paragraph here, and you know it's the same conversation that he has with the reporters. Ray and I had said to each other during the months we had tried to prepare ourselves for exactly this kind of ordeal. You know, probably a similar kind of preparation that Barack and Michelle Obama had to have. Robinson later said in his autobiography, "I never had it made." We had agreed that I had no right to lose my temper and jeopardize the chances of all the blacks who would follow me if I could break down the barriers. So we moved. And, you know, that's an important thing that we need to consider. You may have heard, some of you may have heard, some of you may know about the talk that black parents have to have with their children about being pulled over by the police. And it's the same kind of conversation. We had agreed that I had no right to lose my temper and jeopardize the chances of all the blacks who would follow me if I could break down the barriers. So we moved. Think about the times that you lose your temper. How often do you effectively keep it in? And what does keeping it in all the time do? What does that do to you? Besides give you an ulcer. I'm sure he lets it out in private. But what does that do to you? Knowing that everybody is watching you. Anything else that stands out to you? I did have one more element, and it was at the bottom of page 2. Parker, go ahead.
Like on the bus.
Right, being referred to as boy. At the bottom of page 2, the racial climate in the United States was volatile. Black soldiers had returned from fighting in a war to stop the spread of racism, as we are familiar, only to find racism waiting for them, or continuing to wait for them. When they protested against racial discrimination, many were killed by white police officers. 3 days before the Robinsons left California, a race riot in Columbia, Tennessee, resulted in hundreds of police officers arresting dozens of black men and destroying much of the black business district. 2 suspects were shot while in custody. While in custody. So they had been arrested and then they were shot. But what draws my eye to this is that the black business district was destroyed by the police. There are individuals who, express disappointment in the violence that occurred during the BLM protests this summer. When there's that kind of rage, systemic, generational, where does that kind of violence come from? I'm not saying that violence is okay, but I also recognize that I am a white man. How can we begin to get to a point where we can begin to see each other, to truly see each other, and to try to understand one another's experiences? Parker?
Last 2 weekends ago, when I was in Texas for Texas A&M baseball,
Mhm.
like most of the players there are like black, so like we all went out to dinner, and they only let me and like white.
Oh.
Like even in Texas, like a few weeks ago.
Other thoughts about this piece? It's an interesting piece, and almost exactly, how many years ago? What's it say? It says in here. It said in here, didn't it? I can't do the math. 1946. 75. Is that 75? February 28th, 1946? 75 years ago. So some of you may have grandparents that old. If I'm, thinking about my own folks, and they are grandparents of a junior. Some of you may have great grandparents, but they're getting up there. I mean, mine is 100, and she would have no recollection of anything like this. And certainly, you know, if your grandparents are that old, they're not going to have a memory of this, but they're, you know, growing up in this era. All right. So you need your fences, and hopefully you have your fences. You guys have your fences? What?
Oh, the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, I have that book.
It's okay, I didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah.
That's when you pulled up.
I thought it was like a writing, like, saying or something.
No. Well, like a raft.
Yeah, like, this, yeah. Yeah, I got the book. I thought it was like a,
No.
like a writing style.
No.
Pen style.
All right. So let's take a look, first of all, at the dedication for Lloyd Richards, who adds to whatever he touches. Lloyd Richards is the first director of August Wilson's play in 1983 as a staged reading. Then it was performed in 1985 at Yale. And you will notice there, as you kind of go into the cast list, Troy Maxon was initially played by James Earl Jones. Who knows who James Earl Jones is? Anybody know who James Earl Jones is? He's Mufasa, man. Mufasa. He is the voice of Darth Vader. That's James Earl Jones. And then in 1987 on Broadway. Courtney B. Vance, an important current actor as well. I can't remember what TV show he's on. He's on. Is he on anything right now? I don't think he's on anything right now, actually. So take a look at the introduction. Page, let's see here, 7 and 8. VII and VIII. Introduction by Lloyd Richards. This director, the guy who the play was dedicated to. And if you're looking at the agenda, there's some questions that I want you to be thinking about. So looking at these first 3 questions. What is it that Richards tells us audiences value in Wilson's storytelling? Be able to answer these questions, okay? And these books are yours, so mark them up. You're allowed to mark these up. Yep. Yes, I got one. Okay, all right. So what is it that audiences value? What do we learn about Troy Maxon, the main character? So as it's talking about Troy, be paying attention. What is it that we learn about him? And 2 things. What did he learn from his father? And be able to identify at least one conflict that he's faced with as a Black American. And then third, I want you to make sure that you highlight the last sentence of the introduction and think about how does that sentence contribute to the universality of this story. Fences is the second major play of a poet turned playwright, August Wilson. I had no idea that Wilson was a poet. One of the most compelling storytellers to begin writing for the theater in many years, he has taken the responsibility of telling the tale of the encounter of the released Black slaves with a vigorous and ruthless growing America decade by decade. So it's referred to as the August Wilson cycle or the Pittsburgh cycle because most of the plays take place in the city of Pittsburgh. And what's worth noting also is that we have a local theater, South Bend Civic Theater, is committed to performing each one of August Wilson's plays over the next, I think, 9 years now, because they did one just last year. Unfortunately, they're not able to do a production this year, but for the next 9 years in the month of February, during Black History Month. Fences encompasses the 1950s and a Black family trying to put down roots in the slag, slippery hills of a middle American urban industrial city that one might correctly mistake for Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. To call August Wilson a storyteller is to align him at one and the same time with the ancient aristocrats of dramatic writing who stood before the tribes and made compelling oral history into legend, as well as with the modern playwrights who bring an audience to their feet at the end of an evening of their work, because that audience knows and they have encountered themselves, their concerns and their passions, and have been moved and enriched by the experience. In Fences, August Wilson tells the story of 4 generations of Black Americans and of how they have passed on a legacy of morals, mores, attitudes, and patterns through stories with and without music. He tells the story of Troy Maxson, born to a sharecropper father who was frustrated by the fact that every crop took him further into debt. The father knew himself as a failure and took it out on everyone at hand, including his young son Troy and his wives, all of whom leave him. Troy learns violence from him, but he also learns the value of work and the fact that a man takes responsibility for his family, no matter how difficult circumstances may be. He learns respect for a home, the importance of owning land, and the value of an education because he doesn't have one. An excellent baseball player, Troy learns that in the land of equal opportunity, chances for a Black man are not always equal, and that the same country that deprived him asked sacrifice of his brother in World War II and got it. Half his brother's head was blown away, and he is now a disoriented and confused, beautiful man. He learns that he must fight and win the little victories that, given his life, must assume the proportion of major triumphs. He learns that day to day and moment to moment, he lives close to death and must wrestle with death to survive. He learns that to take a chance and grab a moment of beauty can crumble the delicate fabric of an intricate value system and leave one desolate and alone. Strength of body and strength of purpose are not enough. Chance and the color of one's skin, chance again, can tip the balance. You've got to take the crooked with the straight. Troy Maxson spins yarns, raps, tells stories to his family and friends in that wonderful environment of the pre-television, pre-air-conditioned era, when the back porch and the backyard were the platform for some of the most exciting tales of that time. From this platform, and through his behavior, he passes on to his extended family principles for living, which members of his family accept or refute through the manner in which they choose to live their own lives. How is this reformed criminal perceived? What should be learned from him? What accepted? What passed on? Is his life to be discarded or honored? That is the story of Fences, which we build to keep things and people out or in. So take a few moments. How do we go about answering these 3 questions? Mark those moments. What is it that the audiences value? What did we learn about Troy? What did he learn from his father? What is one conflict he's faced with as a Black American? And make sure you highlight that last sentence. How does that sentence contribute to the universality of this story? A trio of questions I frequently ask. What do you see? What do you think? do you wonder? What do you see? What do you think? Oh, what do you wonder? Man, my back. There it is. There it is, Parker. Anybody need more time? Katie, do you need more time? No. So first up, what do audiences value in Wilson's storytelling? What do they get out of August Wilson, out of seeing a play by August Wilson?
They get a different I just had the word, what is it? Like viewpoint and like point of view, like through a different culture and history of these
Okay.
people.
Okay. What else? Different, but also not. Take a look at that second paragraph, right in the middle. The audience rises to their feet because they know that they've encountered themselves, their concerns and their passions, and have been moved and enriched by the experience. How is it that we might see ourselves in this text, even if we're not Black? Well, that's very easy. We're human. This is a human story. The mistakes that Troy makes are human kinds of mistakes. And I will tell you that he makes mistakes, and some big ones. At the same time, I want you to consider that third paragraph. Does that remind you of a character that we've recently encountered? Does that remind you of anybody? That's where what do you see, think, and wonder comes in. Everybody see anything familiar in that third paragraph? Yeah. And I don't know that it's even vaguely similar, except for I think the vagueness maybe comes in with having multiple wives who leave him, right? Sharecropper father. Ultimately that's essentially what becomes Gene's father's final job. Frustrated by the fact that every crop took him further into debt. The father knew himself as a failure. And I think Gene's father recognizes himself in that way too, but he does not express it. He certainly doesn't behave as if he is a failure. And took it out on everyone at hand, including his young son, Troy. Troy learns violence from him, but he also learns the value of work. How do we break the cycle of abuse? That's another question. How do we begin to break the cycle of abuse? It's easier said than done. Parker?
Probably like realizing like how bad it is, and like kind of like one like the who did I say? How does I do?
Right. Yeah.
Parents like showing them it's not okay.
Right. I mean, I think about my wife. My wife escaped an extremely abusive household. She's my hero. I mean, I cannot imagine the things that she experienced. And she moved out. Actually, she was kicked out and moved to the other side of the state, as far away as she could. And that was what enabled me to meet her. Getting away from, that environment is one of the best ways you can break that cycle. And that's a hard thing to do, especially when it's systemic within your family. So what do we learn about Troy? What are some of the things that we learn about Troy in here? What stands out to you? That last line reminds me an awful lot of my father. My grandfather and father. My grandfather was raised by a prostitute. His father died in a bar fight. My grandfather learned the value of work and instilled that same value in his children. I was raised with the value that grown men do not play games. Grown men with responsibilities don't play games. And the reason I remember this so vividly is my father sprained his ankle when he was a mill worker because he was playing games. He was ashamed of himself because for the time that he was laid up with the sprain, he was not able to make any income. At a time when the steel industry was in distress and it was choosing to lay people off. Grown men don't play games. My dad made the mistake of playing volleyball and sprained his ankle and consequently could not work until that ankle was healed. The value of work, a man takes responsibility for his family, no matter how difficult the circumstances may be. Respect for a home, the importance of owning land, and the value of an education, because he doesn't have one. What's one conflict that Troy experiences as a Black American? Just one. What did you mark? Did you mark anything? Anybody got anything? We'll just let it be awkward. I talk too much already. One conflict.
Discrimination.
Can you be more specific? Parker?
I like the background with baseball. I was like kind of like a gamble, like first if you're any good at baseball, then like your student color.
Right. Okay. All right. So how does the last sentence contribute to the universality of the story? That is the story of fences, which we build to keep things and people out or in. All you guys with your cameras off, that's what you're doing.
Kind of like the clique mentality, like you're not. It's like to keep all the white people in, and everyone else out like they have their own.
Oh, that click. I got what you're saying now. Sure. Okay. Or, family members. Not talking, not speaking up. not expressing how you feel about things. Those questions are key in that final paragraph on page 8. Okay, keep that in mind. I also marked chance and the color of one's skin, chance again can tip the balance. What does that sentence mean? That's right in the middle of page 8, at the end of that first full paragraph on the page. Chance and the color of one's skin, chance again can tip the balance. What does that mean? Everybody have any idea what that means? What does that mean? And there's really no way to rephrase that question. So I'll ask again. What does that mean? You got anything? What is Lloyd Richards saying with that sentence? I'm going to explain it, and people are going to go, of course. What does he mean? Chance and the color of one's skin, chance again can tip the balance.
Just like lucky enough being like lucky enough.
Well, what determines our skin color?
Ancestors.
Luck. Chance. Chance determines our skin color. The person that you are, you just happen to be born to the parents that you were born to. Does that make sense? It's chance that determines who we turn out to be. Chance and the color of one's skin, chance again, can tip the balance. I mean, I could probably walk down the hall relatively unscathed, but at the same time, there could be a catastrophic failure in the ceiling and something collapse on me and kill me right there. Chance. Chance has an odd way of playing with us. There's an interesting link between fences and that last sentence. That is the story of fences which we build to keep things and people out or in, and farewell to Manzanar. How many of you remember the reference to the song, Don't Fence Me In? There's an allusion to the song, Don't Fence Me In Farewell to Manzanar. All right, so next we're turning to the epigraph, which is right after the title page. Looks like that. This is by August Wilson from one of his poems. When the sins of our fathers visit us, we do not have to play host. We can banish them with forgiveness as God in his largeness and laws. When the sins of our fathers visit us, we do not have to play host. We can banish them with forgiveness as God in his largeness and laws. So where does that phrase come from? Sins of the father. And you can Google it if you want, if you don't know. Does that sound familiar? The phrase is, the sins of our fathers, or the sins of the father, become the sins of the son, or are the sins of the son, are visited upon the sin, or are visited upon the son. It's a whole bunch of different ways that we may have heard this before. Anybody found it? Yep. What? No, it's not the Ten Commandments. Although, how many of you watched the TV show Prodigal Son? Does anybody watch the TV show Prodigal Son? Anybody? No, I'm the only one? How embarrassing. There's a character in it who has played Troy Maxon, I can't tell you how many times. And we're going to look at a review of his performance, possibly an interview with him. He's a friend of mine. Any luck? Is anybody looking? Parker, you looked. Did you find it?
Huh?
Were you able to find it?
I thought, I don't think it's right. It said it was from the Bible.
It is from the Bible.
Oh. Well, no, I know that quote, but I thought it was from somewhere else.
Where did you think it was from?
Well,
Shakespeare?
No, I knew it was from the Bible, but like,
Oh.
I thought I'd heard somewhere else too. I didn't know which one was the right answer.
Oh, well, I mean, it exists in the Bible, and then it becomes, stuff that we know. Okay. Yeah, what did it say? Do you remember what it said?
It didn't say where it was from.
Parental sin. So it's something along these lines. Fathers shall not be put to death because of their children. Well, that's a relief. Nor shall children be put to death because of their fathers. Generational consequences of our sin that affect those that are close to us. Let's see here. He committed all the sins his father had done before him. An idea that things are passed down. I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation. The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love, and forgiving sin and rebellion. So a different chapter of the same book. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation. It's sometimes referred to as generational sin. Oh, and I haven't been sharing that with you. Sorry. Whoops. So what does that epigraph mean? What does it mean for children to pay for the sins of their fathers? What does it mean to punish people into the third and fourth generation?
It's basically like all of his father's debt.
So debt, like what kind of debt?
Even like money debt, moral debt.
Money debt and moral debt. Okay. What ultimately what is said about abusive parents? How do we break that cycle of abuse? Got to get away from it. What do you think August Wilson is suggesting by writing, we can banish the father's sins with forgiveness? How do we do that?
Forgive and forget.
Forgive and forget. What does it mean to forgive? Sam,
Let it go.
what does that mean?
Just stop, not-
Yeah, to not let it, to not carry it around with you, right? To not seek vengeance or revenge. Is that an easy thing to do? No, forgiveness is not easy. Forgiveness is hard. All right. So, let's start reading. Turn to the setting. Setting is important. Oh. And actually, before we get started, take a look at this building. So this is the Civic Arena. This is the arena in which the Pittsburgh Penguins used to play. And that dome that you see would open up. I went to many, many concerts there. That was built in a neighborhood that was largely a black neighborhood. When they started building that, those people had to move. And they started building that around the time that this was set. So there's some loss that we might kind of, consider what might be happening in this neighborhood at large as well. So the setting is the yard which fronts the only entrance to the Maxon household, an ancient 2-story brick house set back off a small alley in a big city neighborhood. The entrance to the house is gained by 2 or 3 steps leading to a wooden porch badly in need of paint. A relatively recent addition to the house and running its full width, the porch lacks congruence. It is a sturdy porch with a flat roof. 1 or 2 chairs of dubious value sit at one end where the kitchen window opens onto the porch. An old-fashioned icebox stands silent guard at the opposite end. The yard is a small dirt yard, partially fenced, except for the last scene with a wooden sawhorse, a pile of lumber, and other fence-building equipment set off to the side. Opposite is a tree from which hangs a ball made of rags. A baseball bat leans against the tree. 2 oil drums serve as garbage receptacles and sit near the house at right to complete the setting. So let me see if I can find a quick image of a couple of the sets. So this is one. Boy, that's a nice looking set, that's for sure. Where was it? Where is it? Come on, where are you? There we go. Yeah, look at that. So the things that can be done in a theater space. See if I can find another. Wow. Look at that. That's like Broadway. Oh, and oh, here's one with 2 houses. Where's that at? Here it is. Oh, that's just a rendering with a couple of, looks like fake mannequins there. All right. So hopefully that gives you a sense. And we are going to watch it too. Oh, I didn't share that one. Oops. It's one with a couple of houses. All right. Then the plague. Near the turn of the century, the destitute of Europe sprang on the city with tenacious claws and an honest and solid dream. The city devoured them. So what happened to the immigrants from Europe? To the people who settled in Polish Hill, for instance. Polish Hill is another community in the city of Pittsburgh. What happened to them? The city devoured them. You ever heard that phrase? The city will eat you up? How many of you are familiar with the Hall & Oates song, Man Eater? Is everybody familiar with that? One person has received the proper education. It's all about New York City, eating you up, just chewing you up. Do you?
Yeah, no, yes, the song makes sense.
Okay. The city devoured them. They swelled its belly until it burst into 1,000 furnaces and sewing machines, 1,000 butcher shops and bakers' ovens, 1,000 churches and hospitals and funeral parlors and moneylenders. The city grew. It nourished itself and offered each man a partnership limited only by his talent, his guile, and his willingness and capacity for hard work. For the immigrants of Europe, a dream dared and won true. The descendants of African slaves were offered no such welcome or participation. They came from places called the Carolinas and the Virginias, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. They came strong, eager, searching. The city rejected them, and they fled and settled along the riverbanks and under bridges in shallow, ramshackle houses made of sticks and tar paper. They collected rags and wood. They sold the use of their muscles and their bodies. They cleaned houses and washed clothes. They shined shoes. And in quiet desperation and vengeful pride, they stole and lived in pursuit of their own dream, that they could breathe free finally and stand to meet life with the force of dignity and whatever eloquence the heart could call upon. By 1957, the hard-won victories of the European immigrants had solidified the industrial might of America. War had been confronted and won with new energies that used loyalty and patriotism as its fuel. Life was rich, full, and flourishing. The Milwaukee Braves won the World Series, and the hot winds of change that would make the 60s a turbulent, racing, dangerous, and provocative decade had not yet begun to blow full. Act 1, Scene 1. It is 1957. Troy and Bono enter the yard, engaged in conversation. Troy is 53 years old, a large man with thick, heavy hands. It is this largeness that he strives to fill out and make an accommodation with. Together with his blackness, his largeness informs his sensibilities and the choices he has made in his life. Of the two men, Bono is obviously the follower. His commitment to their friendship of 30-odd years is rooted in his admiration of Troy's honesty, capacity for hard work, and his strength, which Bono seeks to emulate. What are the things that we notice about Troy? Size, certainly. And this guy I know who's played Troy, he's like I think he's 7 feet tall. His shoes are special made. He's got such big feet. He is a giant. It is Friday night, payday. And the one night of the week, the two men engage in a ritual of talk and drink. Troy is usually the most talkative, and at times he can be crude and almost vulgar, though he is capable of rising to profound heights of expression. The men carry lunch buckets and wear or carry burlap aprons and are dressed in clothes suitable to their jobs as garbage collectors. Troy, you ought to stop that lying. I ain't lying. Had a watermelon this big, he indicates with his hands. Talking about, what watermelon, Mr. Rand? I like to fell out. What watermelon, Mr. Rand? And it's sitting there, big as life. What did Mr. Rand say? Ain't said nothing. Figure if the too dumb to know he carrying a watermelon, he wasn't going to get much sense out of him. Trying to hide that great big old watermelon under his coat. Afraid to let the white man see him carry it home. I'm like you. I ain't got no time for them kind of people. Now, what he looked like getting mad because he see the man from the union talking to Mr. Rand. He come to me talking about Maxon going to get us fired. I told him to get away from me with that. He walked away from me calling you a troublemaker. What Mr. Rand say? Ain't said nothing. He told me to go down to the commissioner's office next Friday. They called me down there to see them. Well, as long as you got your complaint filed, they can't fire you. That's what one of them white fellas tell me. I ain't worried about them firing me. They're going to fire me because I asked a question? That's all I did. I went to Mr. Rand and asked him, why? Why you got the white men's driving and the colored lifting? Told him, what's the matter? Don't I count? You think only white fellas got sense enough to drive a truck? That ain't no paper job. Hell, anybody can drive a truck. How come you got all whites driving and the colored lifting? He told me to take it to the union. Well, hell, that's what I done. Now they want to come up with this pack of lies. I told Brownie if the man come and ask him any questions, just tell the truth. It ain't nothing but something they done trumped up on you because you filed a complaint on them. Brownie don't understand nothing. All I want them to do is change the job description. Give everybody a chance to drive the truck. Brownie can't see that. He ain't got that much sense. How you figure he'd be making out with that gal, be up at Taylor's all the time? That Alberta gal? Same as you and me. Getting just as much as we is, which is to say nothing. It is, huh? Figure you're doing a little better than me, and I ain't saying what I'm doing. Oh, look here. I know you. If you had got anywhere near that gal, 20 minutes later, you'd be looking to tell somebody. And the first one you're going to tell that you're going to want to brag to is going to be me. I ain't saying that. I see where you be eyeing her. I eye all the women. I don't miss nothing. Don't never let nobody tell you Troy Maxon don't eye the women. Been doing more than eyeing her. You done bought her a drink or two. Hell yeah, I bought her a drink. What that mean? Bought you one too. What that mean? Because I buy her a drink. I'm just being polite. It's all right to buy her one drink. That's what you call being polite. But when you want to be buying 2 or 3, that's what you call eyeing her. Look here. As long as you known me, you ever known me to chase after women? Hell yeah. Long as I done known you. You forgetting I knew you when? No, I'm talking about since I've been married to Rose. Oh, not since you've been married to Rose. Now that's the truth there. I can say that. All right then. Case closed. So you'd be walking up around Alberta's house. You're supposed to be at Taylor's and you'd be walking up around there. What you watching where I'm walking for? I ain't watching after you. Seen you walking around there more than once. Hell, you liable to see me walking anywhere. That don't mean nothing because you see me walking around there. Where'd she come from anyway? She just kind of showed up one day. Tallahassee. You can look at her and tell she one of them Florida gals. They got some big, healthy women down there. Growing right up out of the ground. Got a little bit of Indian in her. Most of them down in Florida got some Indian in them. I don't know about that Indian part, but she damn sure big and healthy. Woman wears some big stockings. Got them great big old legs and hips as wide as the Mississippi River. Legs don't mean nothing. You don't do nothing but push them out of the way. But them hips cushion the ride. Troy, you ain't got no sense. It's the truth. Like you riding on Goodyears. Rose enters from the house. She is 10 years younger than Troy. Her devotion to him stems from her recognition of the possibilities of her life without him. A succession of abusive men and their babies. A life of partying and running the streets. The church, or aloneness with its attendant pain and frustration. She recognizes Troy's spirit as a fine and illuminating one, and she either ignores or forgives his faults, only some of which she recognizes. Though she doesn't drink, her presence is an integral part of the Friday night rituals. She alternates between the porch and the kitchen, where supper preparations are underway. What you all out here getting into? What you worried about what we getting into for? This is men talk, woman. What I care, what you talking about? Bono, you gonna stay for supper? No, I thank you, Rose. But Lucille says she cooking up a pot of pig feet. Pig feet? Hell, I'm going home with you. Might even stay the night if you got some pig feet. You got something in there to top them pig feet, Rose? Cooking up some chicken. I got some chicken and collard greens. Well, go on back in the house and let me and Bono finish what we was talking about. This is men talk. I got some talk for you later. You know what kind of talk I mean. You go on and powder up. Troy Maxson, don't you start that now. Troy puts his arm around her. Oh, woman, come here. Look here, Bono. When I met this woman, I got out that place, say, hitch up my pony, saddle up my mare. There's a woman out there for me somewhere. I looked here, I looked there, saw Rose, latched onto her. I latched onto her and told her, I'm going to tell you the truth. I told her, baby, I don't want to marry. I just want to be your man. Rose told me, tell him what you told me, Rose. I told him if he wasn't the marrying kind, then move out the way so the marrying kind could find me. That's what she told me. You in my way. You blocking the view. Move out the way so I can find me a husband. I thought it over 2 or 3 days. Come back. Ain't no 2 or 3 days, nothing. You was back the same night. Come back, told her. Okay, baby. But I'm going to buy me a banty rooster and put him out there in the backyard, and when he see a stranger come, he'll flap his wings and crow. Look here, Bono. I could watch the front door myself. It was that back door I was worried about. Troy, you ought not talk like that. Troy ain't doing nothing but telling a lie. Only thing is, when we first got married, forget the rooster, we ain't had no yard. I hear you tell it. Me and Lucille was staying down there on Logan Street. Had 2 rooms with the outhouse in the back. I ain't mind the outhouse none, but when that goddamn wind blow through there in the winter, that's what I'm talking about. This day, I wonder why in the hell I ever stayed down there for 6 long years. But see, I didn't know I could do no better. I thought only white folks had inside toilets and things. There's a lot of people don't know they can do no better than they doing now. That's just something you got to learn. A lot of folks still shop at Bella's. Ain't nothing wrong with shopping at Bella's. She got fresh food. I ain't said nothing about if she got fresh food. I'm talking about what she charged. She charged 10 cents more than the A&P. A&P ain't never done nothing for me. I spends my money where I'm treated right. I go down to Bella, I say, I need a loaf of bread. I'll pay you Friday. She give it to me. What sense that make when I got money to go and spend it somewhere else and ignore the person who done right by me? That ain't in the Bible. We ain't talking about what's in the Bible. What sense it make to shop there when she overcharged? You shop where you want to. I'll do my shopping where the people been good to me. Well, I don't think it's right for her to overcharge. That's all I was saying. Look here. I got to get on. Lucille going to be raising all kind of hell. Where are you going? We ain't finished this pint. Come here, finish this pint. Well, hell, if you ever turn the bottle loose, the only thing I say about the A&P is I'm glad Corey got that job down there. Help him take care of his school clothes and things. Gabe done moved out and things getting tight around here. He got that job. He can start to look out for himself. Boy done went and got recruited by a college football team. I told that boy about that football stuff. White man ain't going to let him get nowhere with that football. I told him when he first come to me with it. Now you come telling me he done went and got more tied up in it? He ought to go and get recruited in how to fix cars or something where he can make a living. He ain't talking about making no living playing football. It's just something the boys in school do. They're going to send a recruiter by to talk to you. They'll tell you we ain't talking about making no living playing football. It's an honor to be recruited. It ain't going to get him nowhere. Bono will tell you that. So there we are at the bottom of page 8. We'll pick up there next time. Have a good weekend, everybody. Thanks.